I always thought Emma and I had one of those rare, quiet kind of marriages, the kind people looked at and assumed was unshakable. We weren't flashy, weren't dramatic. We just worked. Or at least I thought we did. We'd been together for 12 years, married for 9. I'd gotten used to our rhythms, the grocery store on Sundays, coffee on the back porch every Saturday morning, her weird habit of alphabetizing the spice rack. I could probably predict her next sentence before she said it half the time. That's the kind of familiarity you build after a decade. But sometimes familiarity can be a mask. And sometimes you don't notice the mask slipping until it's already on the floor. It started one Tuesday morning, and it could have been any Tuesday, really. The kind you sleepwalk through, slightly overcast, the smell of rain in the air, coffee already brewing when I stepped into the kitchen. I'd woken up earlier than usual. A meeting got moved, which meant I had an extra 30 minutes to myself. It felt like a small luxury. Emma had already left for the gym, or so I thought. Her car was gone, and her gym bag was missing. I figured I'd make a cup of coffee, scroll through the news, maybe reply to a few emails before getting ready for the day. I didn't have any reason to suspect anything was off. Not yet. Her laptop was open on the kitchen table. That wasn't unusual. She worked remotely part-time and often left it open when she was multitasking. I usually didn't pay it much attention. But that morning, the screen was lit, a new notification flashing in the corner of her social media tab. Normally, I'd ignore it. But for whatever reason, boredom, curiosity, fate, I looked. It was a photo. Not just any photo. A recent one. Her profile was tagged in a post from someone I didn't recognize, a woman named Rachel or Rebecca, I forget. But it was the image that hit me like a punch to the chest. There was Emma in what looked like a bar or lounge, dim lighting, a few string lights in the background, and she was smiling. Not just any smile. It was that carefree, all-teeth, haven't a care in the world kind of smile. The kind she used to give me before the stress of work and life took some of the sparkle out of her. But it wasn't just the smile. It was the guy next to her. His arm was around her waist and hers rested lightly on his chest. They looked close. Too close. And here's the part that made my throat close up. The timestamp on the photo said it was posted last night. Roughly around 9:30 p.m. when she told me she was still at the office working late on a pitch for one of her newer clients. I stared at that photo longer than I probably should have. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the post was delayed, or the tag was accidental, or the whole thing was taken out of context. I mean, what were the odds? But the feeling in my gut said otherwise. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband who sees shadows where there aren't any. Still, something about the image felt too an asterisk mate to ignore. When Emma got home a bit later, sweaty, flushed, still in her workout clothes, I was standing at the kitchen counter, trying to act normal. I had the photo burned into my brain, but I didn't want to start a war over something I didn't fully understand. So I asked, lightly, like I wasn't choking on my own doubts. Hey, weird thing, I saw a picture pop up on your laptop. Looked like it was from a bar last night? You were with some people I didn't recognize. She blinked for half a second. That's all. A blink, a small intake of breath, and then her face went into performance mode. Oh, that's an old pic, she said, brushing past me to grab a bottle of water. I think it was from a happy hour like 2 months ago? Maybe more. Someone must have just posted it now. I remember wearing that dress in March. Her voice was calm. Even. Too even. I'd lived with her long enough to recognize when she was smoothing her tone out on purpose. She didn't stop moving. She kept her back to me while she fiddled with the fridge. Casual, like nothing was out of place. She even chuckled a little. You know how people always tag you in random stuff later, she added, shrugging as she finally turned around. Facebook's time warp thing or whatever. I barely remember half the photos I'm in. I nodded slowly. Right, yeah? Just caught me off guard, I guess. She smiled. Kissed me on the cheek. Walked upstairs to shower. I stood there for a long time after she left the room, listening to the water running above me and wondering when exactly that version of her had stopped being familiar. She had an answer for everything. And maybe it was true. Maybe it really was an old photo, poorly timed. Maybe I was imagining things, letting a small coincidence blow up into something bigger. But something about her tone, calculated, almost practiced, sat wrong with me. I didn't confront her further. Didn't accuse. I just let it go. Out loud anyway. But inside something shifted. A click I couldn't unhear. A red flag I could no longer chalk up to paranoia. I tried to go on like normal. I went to work, answered emails, sat through meetings. But my mind kept flashing back to that image. Her expression. The man I didn't know. The way her hand rested so easily on his chest, like it had been there before. I started reviewing things I'd dismissed before. A few nights when she was home late and didn't seem all that stressed. The couple of times she didn't answer her phone until the third call and claimed bad service. The new dress she bought a few weeks ago that I hadn't seen her wear around me. That half-finished glass of red wine left in the sink last Friday when she said she was too tired to go out. Maybe they were all nothing. Or maybe they were pieces of a puzzle I didn't even realize I was assembling. That night, after she went to sleep, I couldn't. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun, trying to tell myself I was just being paranoid. That I was tired. That people get tagged in random photos all the time. But my gut said otherwise. My gut told me that something had cracked open, something I wouldn't be able to seal shut again with rationalizations. The worst part was how easily she deflected. Not angry, not defensive. Just smooth. Controlled. I realized then that if she was hiding something, she was good at it. And that scared me more than anything. I didn't make a scene. I didn't go through her phone or follow her around. That wasn't me. But from that moment on, I started paying attention. Because maybe the truth wasn't in what she said, it was in the quiet gaps between her stories. And I was finally ready to listen. After that morning, I started seeing things. Not hallucinations, nothing dramatic like that. Just details. Little behaviors, things I'd overlooked before or explained away without thinking. But now, with that photo still burned into my mind, they landed differently. Sharper. Heavier. It was like someone had handed me a black light and said, take another look at the life you thought you knew. For the first few days, I didn't change anything on the surface. I acted normal. We still had dinner together. Still watched our Wednesday night shows. Still shared a bed. But my mind was somewhere else entirely, rewinding, scanning, connecting dots I hadn't even noticed were on the page. First came the phone. Emma used to leave it lying around without a second thought on the coffee table, the kitchen counter, sometimes even forgotten in the car. She never cared. But now? It was always on her. Always. And not just near her, but face down and silenced like it was hiding something. I noticed the password had changed too. I only found out by accident, went to check the time on it one day and was met with a locked screen I hadn't seen before. New password? I asked, trying to sound casual. She didn't even look up from her book. Yeah. Work stuff. HR said we should update them every few months now. That made sense on the surface. But still, something about the way she said it, how she didn't offer the new code, how she didn't even glance at me struck a chord. It wasn't just that she changed the password. It was that I hadn't even noticed when it happened. Then came the calls. She used to talk on speaker or right there next to me while folding laundry, brushing her hair, whatever. Lately, she'd step into the other room. Bathroom, garage, laundry room, anywhere out of *T. If I walked in unexpectedly, her voice would change. A little higher, more careful. Sometimes she'd hang up altogether. Who was that? I asked one night as she came out of the laundry room. Just Kelly from work, she said, not missing a beat. Didn't sound like Kelly? She *********** me a look, that half annoyed, half playful one. You've talked to Kelly like once? How would you know? She wasn't wrong. But something about how fast the defense came out, that smooth pivot left a bitter taste in my mouth. And then there was her appearance. Emma had always taken care of herself, don't get me wrong. She had her favorite skincare rituals, a closet organized by color, her go-to perfume that somehow smelled like confidence and nostalgia at once. But lately, she was dressing differently. More effort, but in a way that felt calculated. Higher heels, tighter blouses, bolder lipsticks. And not for date nights or family dinners. For work. You look nice, I said one morning as she was heading out the door. Client meeting? She paused. Huh? Oh. No, just a regular day. That's all she said. She was gone before I could ask anything else. There was a night, maybe a week after the photo, when she came home late. Again. She smelled like that same perfume I hadn't smelled in years. The one she wore on our honeymoon. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll my phone, but my stomach was in knots. How was work? She dropped her keys in the bowl, kicked off her heels. Busy. Had to redo the Martinez proposal. We're pitching Thursday. I nodded. Funny. I thought the Martinez pitch was last week. She froze for a split second, half a breath. Really, before brushing it off. It got pushed. Of course it did. I didn't say anything else. But the crack in my chest widened. And then came the business trips. She'd always traveled for work occasionally. Conferences, client meetings, networking stuff. But lately, the trips came more frequently. Last-minute flights, packed bags by the front door before I even heard about them. One night, I asked where she was headed. "Denver," she said without looking up from her suitcase. "Funny. I thought your client was in Boston." She didn't blink. "They opened a Denver branch." The next day, I reached out to her coworker, Lisa. Just a casual check-in. "Hey," I texted. "Hope everything's good with Emma's trip. Must be a busy week over there." Her reply was immediate. "What trip?" That was the moment the air got thinner around me. I didn't press. Just closed my phone, set it on the counter, and stared at the wall for a long time. There it was, confirmation that the story she told me didn't match reality. Not a feeling, not a hunch, a fact. Still, I didn't confront her. I wasn't ready for what came next. But the worst part wasn't the lies. It wasn't even the idea of her with someone else. It was that I started realizing how long I'd been making excuses for her. The way she laughed at her phone but never showed me the texts. The mysterious charges on our credit card for wine bars and restaurants I'd never been to. The sudden interest in new music. Playlists full of songs I didn't recognize and she never played around me. The long, hot showers on weekend mornings when she thought I was still asleep. The smirk on her face after reading a message she wouldn't talk about. None of it made sense back then. But it made sense now. And I hated that I hadn't seen it sooner. Hindsight, I've learned, is cruel. You start reevaluating everything. Every night she was too tired. Every last-minute cancellation. Every smile that didn't reach her eyes. Every time she said, "I love you." And you felt the words hit hollow. There's a moment in every unraveling when you stop trusting the other person. And you start doubting yourself. That's where I was. Had she been unhappy this whole time? Was I too distracted to notice? Too complacent? Too trusting? I didn't have answers. But I knew the ground was shifting beneath me. Quietly. Relentlessly. That weekend, we had dinner with her parents. We sat across from each other like strangers pretending to be familiar. She laughed at her dad's corny jokes, made polite small talk with her mom. To anyone watching, we probably looked like the same couple we'd always been. But I couldn't stop watching her. The way she smiled when no one was looking. The glances she stole at her phone under the table. The way she seemed lighter, freer, like she had a secret and it made her feel alive. That was the moment I realized the distance between us wasn't just growing. It had already grown. A gap so wide I wasn't sure how to cross it. And maybe, deep down, she didn't want me to. That night, lying next to her in bed, I watched her scroll on her phone until she turned off the lamp. "Good night," she said softly. "Night," I replied. She rolled away from me, and I just stared at the ceiling, wondering if she was thinking about him. Or if maybe she didn't think about me at all anymore. It happened on a Monday. Mondays were always hectic. Calls stacked back to back. 100 emails pinging my inbox before noon. Usually, I'd be out the door by 7:30, home around 6, beat and ready to zone out on the couch. But that day, my client canceled a lunch meeting last minute. Just like that, I had an unexpected window of time. No one needed me for a few hours, so I figured I'd stop by the house and grab a few files I'd left on the kitchen table. Nothing dramatic, just a detour. Funny how those detours sometimes lead you straight into the truth. I remember pulling up to the curb and noticing the car parked in front of the house. A sleek gray Audi, clean, expensive-looking, the kind of car that stands out in a neighborhood full of SUVs and aging Hondas. At first, I thought it might be a neighbor's guest. We had people over all the time. But then I saw the front door, slightly ajar. Not wide open, but not shut either. Just enough to make my gut tighten. My first thought wasn't suspicion. It was concern. Break-in? Delivery guy forgot to close it? Maybe Emma forgot something and came home early. 2. Maybe we just crossed paths without realizing. I parked quietly, left the engine running for a second while I just stared at the door. It felt like one of those moments in a dream where you know something's off, but you can't say why yet. Still, I told myself not to jump to conclusions. I turned off the ignition, stepped out of the car, and approached the house like I didn't already feel my pulse in my throat. I didn't make a sound. Didn't call out. Didn't slam the door open. Just slipped inside like I belonged there because I did. And that's when I heard them. Voices. Low. Muffled. Laughter. Coming from the living room. I stepped down the hall, slow and silent, my breath shallow, the way you instinctively move when you're not supposed to be somewhere, even if it's your own home. And then I saw them. Emma was on the couch, her legs tucked beneath her, body angled toward him. The man from the photo. Same face. Same arm around her. He was sitting close. Too close. I watched as he leaned in, whispering something in her ear. She smiled. Not forced, not guarded. Real. Carefree. The kind of smile I hadn't seen on her in a long time. And her hand? It was resting on his knee. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. It was like watching a movie of my own life unraveling. I stood there, just behind the hallway arch, hidden by the corner of the wall, and I let it all register. The way she laughed at his joke, not even glancing at her phone. The way she looked at him like the rest of the world didn't exist. The way she relaxed into him like this was normal, like I didn't exist. I should have stormed in. That's what most people would have done, right? Confront her. Scream. Demand an explanation. But I didn't. I just stood there. And after a few seconds, though it felt like an eternity, I backed away, carefully, like I was trying not to wake a sleeping animal. I slipped out the front door as quietly as I had come in. Once I got back in the car, I didn't start it. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, trying to keep the roaring in my ears from drowning out my thoughts. There was no more guessing. No more wondering. No more analyzing text messages or wondering why she was late or who she was really texting. It was real. She was cheating on me. With that man? In our house? On our couch? In the middle of the day? I stared at the front of the house for a long time. I don't know what I was hoping to see, maybe some kind of sign, some shift in the atmosphere that would explain it all away. But the house just sat there, quiet and familiar, like it hadn't just betrayed me. Eventually, I drove off. I didn't know where I was going at first. Just away. The first place I ended up was an empty parking lot behind an old movie theater. I used to go there in college. Emma and I saw our first film together there. I didn't even realize where I was until I saw the rusted marquee and felt the punch of memory in my chest. I turned off the car, leaned my head back, and closed my eyes. I kept seeing her face. Not angry. Not cold. Just light. Happy. And not because of me. That was the hardest part. I always figured that if she ever cheated, it'd be out of anger. A fight. A temporary breakdown. But this was warmth. Comfort. Familiarity. It wasn't the beginning of something, it was the middle. I didn't cry. Not yet. Maybe I was too numb. But I started shaking. Just a little at first. Then all over. Like my body was trying to purge the truth it didn't want to hold. I stayed there for an hour, maybe more. Long enough for the sun to shift and throw long shadows across the lot. Long enough to let the weight settle. Then I went home. Not to confront her. Not yet. When I walked through the front door again, later, after they were gone, everything looked untouched. The couch was clean. The throw pillows back in place. A candle burning on the coffee table. Like nothing had happened. Emma was in the kitchen, humming. Stirring something on the stove. She turned, surprised to see me. "Hey, you're home early again?" she asked, smile flickering. "That's 2 in a row. What's going on?" I shrugged. Client bailed. Figured I'd finish the day from here. "Oh," she said, "I studying me for a beat too long." "Well, lucky me." She leaned in and kissed my cheek. And I let her. I stood there, letting her arms wrap around me, her familiar perfume filling my lungs, and I felt like a ghost in my own life. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Because something in me knew this wasn't the moment. Not yet. This wasn't a conversation I wanted to have in anger. Not a scene I wanted to create. I wanted clarity. Control. Dignity. I wanted to leave on my terms, not hers. So I played along. That night, I ate her pasta and asked about her day. I laughed when she told me some work story I didn't hear a word of. I helped her clean up. I kissed her goodnight. And then I lay awake in the dark, listening to her breathing next to me, wondering how long she'd been gone. Because the woman beside me? She wasn't my wife anymore. She was someone else. Someone I didn't know how to reach. Or maybe someone I'd never really known at all. There's a moment when you stop hoping they'll explain. Stop wishing they'll confess or feel guilty or even flinch. After I saw her with him, our living room, our couch, our quiet little life flipped into a backdrop for her secret. I stopped needing answers. Whatever she could have said would have been too late anyway. The truth didn't live in her mouth anymore. It was in her silence, in the way she looked at him like she used to look at me. So I didn't confront her. I didn't ask who he was, how they met, how long it had been going on. I didn't demand names or numbers or reasons. The way I saw it, she made her choice the moment she let him into her house. Into her space. Into her. And now it was my turn to choose. I decided I would leave. Not loudly. Not emotionally. I didn't want a final fight or some climactic scene with broken dishes and shouted regrets. I just wanted peace. And maybe, in some quiet way, I wanted her to feel the absence more than the anger. I wanted the silence to be the statement. That same night, after she fell asleep next to me, her breathing slow and steady as if she wasn't crumbling everything we'd built, I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, mentally drafting my plan. I started with the bank. The next morning, I went in early, before work, and began splitting our finances. I didn't empty our accounts. I wasn't out for revenge. I just took what was fair, half of our savings, a portion of the checking, enough to start over without looking back. I transferred it quietly into a new account under my name and cut the debit card myself in the car before tossing it into a gas station trash bin 10 blocks away. Over the next few days, I began collecting my life in fragments. A photo album tucked in the back of our closet, pictures from college, our early years, the vacations that still made me smile despite everything. My dad's old watch, the one I wore at our wedding. A stack of journals I'd filled sporadically over the years. My favorite coffee mug. The fleece jacket she always stole but never returned. I took these things in stages. A few at a time. So she wouldn't notice. She never did. She was too busy pretending nothing was wrong. Too busy slipping into long showers and coming home later than usual and kissing me goodnight with eyes that didn't fully meet mine. I didn't follow her anymore. I didn't check her texts or scan her social media. I didn't need proof beyond what I'd already seen. Somewhere in that week, I found a small apartment just outside Syracuse. It wasn't much, one bedroom, tiny kitchen, second floor walk-up. But it had big windows and hardwood floors and something even more important, freedom. The kind that didn't have her perfume lingering in the corners or the sound of my own denial echoing off the walls. I signed the lease the next day. Moved in 2 trips. I told no one. Not my coworkers. Not my parents. Not even my best friend who'd stood next to me on our wedding day, who probably would have driven over with a baseball bat if I'd told him the full story. I wanted it to be mine, this quiet escape. This decision to walk away without a single word exchanged. On my last night in that house, I waited for her to say she was working late again. Right on cue, she called around 6:45. "Don't wait up," she said. "I've got a client dinner that might run long." I almost laughed. "Okay," I replied. "Be safe." She hung up with a sigh of routine, like we were just 2 people in a normal marriage on a normal Thursday. By the time she got home, I would be gone. I moved fast. I'd packed the last of my things earlier that morning, just a suitcase and a duffel bag. The essentials. Everything else could stay. The couch we picked out together. The bed she no longer reached for me in. The photos on the fridge. The framed wedding certificate. All of it hers now. All I left behind was my wedding ring. I placed it on her pillow right in the center, like a period at the end of a sentence. I didn't write a note. Didn't explain where I was going or why. She knew. And if she didn't, she would soon enough. When I shut the door behind me, I didn't look back. I drove to my new apartment in silence. No music. No podcasts. Just the sound of the wind through the cracked window and the hum of tires on pavement. I didn't cry. I didn't feel brave. I just felt hollow. Like I'd already spent all the emotion I had, and all that remained was this dull ache sitting in my chest like a stone. The first night in the apartment was strange. I ordered takeout lo mein from a place downstairs and ate sitting on the floor. My furniture wouldn't arrive until the next day. There was nothing on the walls, nothing in the cabinets, just me and a half-empty suitcase and a new beginning I hadn't quite learned how to live in yet. It didn't feel like freedom yet. It felt like aftermath. But it was a start. That weekend I bought a new bed. New sheets. New plates. Even a new coffee mug. It didn't feel like reclaiming anything. More like building something from the wreckage, piece by quiet piece. I stayed off social media. Blocked her number. Forwarded my mail. Kept my head down and my world small. I didn't tell anyone where I'd gone for the first 2 weeks. I just vanished from her life. Let the silence be the echo she'd have to live with. I imagined her coming home that night, finding the ring on the pillow, calling my name through the empty house. I imagined her opening the closets and seeing the hangers empty, noticing the drawer half gone, the spaces I used to fill left bare. And then the panic. The scrambling. The realization that this wasn't a tantrum. It was final. I didn't hate her. Maybe that was the strangest part. I didn't feel rage or bitterness or the desire to burn everything down. I just felt done. Done carrying the weight of someone else's choices. Done begging for clarity in a relationship that had stopped being honest the moment she chose someone else. Done asking why. The truth is, you don't always get closure. Sometimes you just walk out the door and learn to breathe again. So that's what I did. I walked out. And I breathed. The messages started the next morning. First, it was a single missed call from Emma at 6:03 a.m. I saw it light up my burner phone screen, an old backup I dug out from the back of a drawer. I hadn't planned to keep any line open, but curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see what she'd do when silence was the only answer she got. Then came the texts. Nathan? Where are you? Please call me. This isn't funny. If this is some kind of punishment, we need to talk. By noon, she was spiraling. The tone flipped from confusion to panic to denial in record time. I don't know what happened, but I'm sure we can work through it. I came home and the ring was just, what is this? Where did you go? Please, just give me a chance to explain. It's not what you think. That one made me laugh. Not what I think. I'd seen it. Heard her laugh. Watched her reach for him the way she used to reach for me. There wasn't anything left to think. There was only knowing. I didn't respond. Not once. By the end of the day, the missed calls had piled up into the double digits. Her messages were flooding in faster than I could swipe them away. I turned the phone face down and sat on the floor of my new living room, eating cheap pizza out of the box, watching a rerun of Mythbusters on a cracked TV I'd picked up from a pawn shop 2 blocks away. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt still. Not happy. Not healed. But steady. That night, she called my brother. And my mother. And 2 of my coworkers. She even called my old high school best friend, a guy I hadn't talked to in 3 years because once upon a time he made a toast at our wedding and she thought that meant something. One by one, the people around me reached out. Hey man, Emma's looking for you. Everything okay? What happened? She says you're gone. You all right? Do you want me to talk to her? I didn't answer those either. I wasn't mad at them, but I didn't owe them a piece of this. Let them wonder. Let them ask. Let her explain it 100 different ways while I said nothing. She posted a vague status on Facebook 2 days later. I didn't see it firsthand. I deactivated all my old accounts, but someone ***ed it and sent it to me. It said, "We don't always appreciate what we have until it's gone. Sometimes love needs time and space to find its way back. I'm not giving up." The comments flooded in, all the usual sympathies. Sending love. You're strong. Hope everything's okay. She never mentioned my name, never owned what she'd done. She didn't say I lied or I broke something or I drove him away. She just played the part of the heartbroken wife with poetic regret and half-truths in her hands. I guess in some way I expected that. She always knew how to twist a narrative into something softer. Something that made her look like the victim. But the one thing she couldn't manipulate was my silence. There's no story to bend when the other voice goes quiet. She sent a photo a few days later. Of our wedding. Us under an oak tree in autumn, laughing as the wind caught her veil. I'd forgotten how young we looked. How happy. I don't know if it was real then or if I just wanted it to be. But looking at it now, I felt nothing. No grief. No nostalgia. Just distance. She followed it with another message. I was stupid. I lost track of who we were. I never stopped loving you, Nathan. Please come home. I didn't answer. I left the message unread. Days turned into weeks. Her texts grew more frantic. Then more spaced out. Then stopped. There was a day in week 3 when I stood in my new kitchen, bare shelves, secondhand silverware, a carton of eggs and nothing else in the fridge, and I realized I hadn't thought about her all morning. That realization hit me harder than any of her messages had. Healing, I think, happens in moments you don't notice until they've passed. I started putting my energy somewhere else. I signed up for remote consulting gigs, the kind I used to push aside because they didn't pay as much as the firm. I didn't need big paychecks now. I needed purpose. Clarity. I even enrolled in a class, an online course on art therapy, of all things. It felt random at first, but something about it grounded me. The idea of healing through creativity, of channeling emotion into something tactile. Maybe I wasn't ready to say things out loud yet, but I could express them in brushstrokes, in texture, in shape. One afternoon, I walked into a small bookstore near the edge of town. I'd seen it every day on my way to the laundromat but never gone in. It was quiet, warm, smelled like old paper and lavender oil. The woman behind the counter was rearranging a display of children's books. She glanced up, gave me a smile. "You're new." "Yeah," I said. "I guess I am." "Let me guess, you're here for coffee or for something to fix your life?" I laughed. First time in days I'd laughed without it feeling forced. "Both, maybe." She introduced herself. "Brianna." She owned the place. ran reading workshops for kids with attention disorders, sold coffee and stories and hope in a quiet corner of town that most people ignored. We talked for 15 minutes the first time, 30 the next. There wasn't a spark. Not yet. It wasn't like that. It was just ease. Conversation that didn't hurt to have. Meanwhile, Emma's silence finally began to mirror mine. No more messages. No calls. No new posts. It was as if she had finally realized the finality of my absence. A friend told me she'd stopped going to work, that she looked thinner. Someone had seen her crying in the back seat of her sister's car. I didn't follow up, didn't ask for more details, not because I didn't care, but because I'd finally accepted something important. Her collapse wasn't mine to manage. For so long I'd been the fixer, the one who compromised, who made room, who forgave little cuts that became bleeding wounds. But now I was just a man in a second-hand apartment with mismatched furniture and a half-finished painting drying on the windowsill. And that was enough. I found something in the silence I never expected: power. Not over her. Not in some vindictive way. But power over myself. The ability to stay quiet, not out of weakness, but out of strength. To let go of the need for closure and simply close the door myself. I never expected to hear from her again. But about 2 months after I left, I got a letter, handwritten, no return address. The envelope was bent, smudged, like it had been handled too many times before being mailed. I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee and opened it without emotion. Inside, Emma's handwriting poured across the page. She confessed, not just to the affair, but to the emptiness she'd been feeling long before it started. She said she hated the person she had become. She'd lost her job, moved back in with her sister, started therapy, and then came the line that stuck with me. I don't want you back. I just want you to know you weren't the one who failed. I folded the letter, slid it into a drawer. I didn't need to respond. Her words weren't mine to fix anymore. Meanwhile, I kept moving forward. The apartment grew into something that felt like home. I started teaching part-time online, working with kids who needed patience more than precision. One of my art therapy assignments, a collage made from broken magazine scraps, somehow said more about my life than any conversation ever could. Brianna and I grew closer. No rush. No labels. Just long talks, shared books, walks around the lake. She never asked too much about my past. But when I told her, eventually, she just nodded. Sounds like you made it through hell, she said. I shrugged. Still walking.